Hello, welcome to this lecture. We are going to look at good manufacturing practices, which is one of the prerequisite programs for food safety and sanitation, and it is a quality assurance system that ensures that products are consistently produced and controlled according to quality standards. Therefore, we can define good manufacturing practices as a system for ensuring that food products are consistently produced and controlled according to quality standards. And the good manufacturing practices involves establishing strong quality management systems, obtaining appropriate quality raw materials, establishing robust operating procedures, detecting and investigating product quality deviations, maintaining reliable testing laboratories, among others. The good manufacturing practices requirements covers the following areas. We have personnel, plant and grounds, sanitary operations, sanitary facilities and operations, equipment and utensils, processing and controls, warehousing and distribution, among others. We are going to look at establishment as being one of the good manufacturing practices requirements. And under this, we are going to basically look at the design and the facilities of the establishment. So the establishment should be located away from polluted areas. This is to avoid the contamination of the food products with the pollutants. Then it has to also be away from flooding to avoid stagnant water. And then the area where the establishment is located should be free from pest and rodent infestation. Then the establishment location should also allow for or facilitate waste removal. The equipments in the establishment should be located where it can allow for proper functioning, maintenance, cleaning, sanitation, and monitoring. And then the design and the layout of the premises and rooms should permit good food hygiene and prevent cross contamination so that the food remains safe for consumption. The internal structures and fittings of the establishment should have walls which are of permanent structures so that it can last for a longer period of time. And then the walls should also be plastered so that it doesn't harbor pests and rodents. Then also the walls should be should have food grade paint finishing with no flaking paints, and it should be free from cobwebs, dampness, condensation, and molds. Then the floor, the floors of the establishment should allow drainage and cleaning, and then it has to be free from cracks, holes, and so on. Then the ceilings and overhead fixtures should minimize that, and then it should have no cobwebs, condensation, and particles. The windows should be cleanable and then should be able to minimize that, and then the windows should be fitted with the fly screens. The doors of the establishment should be vermin proof with tight fitting frames, should have no direct connection to the residential premises, and then should always be locked. This enables it to be sealed off from external interference, and then the doors should be self-closing. And take note that wooden doors should be avoided. Uh, there has to be disinfection at the entrance. This is to ensure that pathogens or dust are not carried into the food manufacturing area, and this can be done by the use of foot bath and wash basins at the entrance. Then the food contact surfaces should be smooth, impervious, it should be made up of non-toxic materials and easy to clean and sanitize to avoid cross contamination. Then let's discuss about the equipment and containers which are used in the establishment. And then this is also one of the area which is covered by the good manufacturing practices requirements. And so all the equipment should be constructed and installed according to sanitary design principles. Then there has to be preventive maintenance and calibration schedules, and this one has to be documented for future or record purposes and traceability. Then the materials that the equipment and the containers are made up of should be the ones which are non-toxic under use conditions, so that it will not cause contamination of the food products with the toxins or the toxic substances which are found in them. Then food handling, storage, preparation, processing, packaging, and serving should be done using equipment and containers which are good and which are in good sanitary condition. Then the equipments and the containers should also be the one which can be moved or disassembled for proper cleaning, sanitation, and inspection to avoid contamination. Then let's look at food control and monitoring equipment. Cooking and refrigeration equipment should allow for controlling and monitoring of time and temperature of food, and this is very important because it helps to control the growth and multiplication of microorganisms, so that we will be in position of monitoring the time and temperature, so that it doesn't reach then it is always away from the danger zone, which can encourage the growth and multiplication of the microorganisms. Then there has to be monitoring of critical limits, like the one in the hazard analysis and critical control point plan, so that we ensure that the food products are always safe for consumption. Then containers for waste and inedible substances should always be clearly identified. This will help to prevent accidental contamination of food. And then the containers which are used for waste and inedible substances will also be impervious materials, lockable, and this will also help to prevent malicious and accidental contamination. So let's look at the facility water supply. The facility water supply should be uh, adequate potable water. By potable water, we mean the water which is suitable for drinking, in that it is free of pathogens or any other hazard which can cause water-related diseases. So the potable water should be adequate, and then we should ensure that the non-potable water systems are identified clearly and they should be separated from potable water systems, and there should be no cross connection of potable and non-potable water systems. This is to avoid contamination of the potable water. Then drainage and waste disposal should be designed and constructed to prevent contamination of food and potable water. So there has to be always a proper drainage and waste disposal uh, system in the facility. This will be designed and constructed in a way that it will be in position of preventing contamination of food and potable water. Uh, Temperature control. We know control of temperature in a food is very, very important because uh, it helps to prevent or control the growth and multiplication of microorganisms. So there has to be adequate facilities for heating, cooling, cooking, refrigerating, and freezing of foods. And then adequate refrigerated and frozen storage of food, especially when the food is to be stored, then the food has to be first refrigerated or and frozen adequately so that the food doesn't get spoiled in the process of storage. Then monitoring of food temperatures has to be done always so that we can control the growth of microorganisms. Then control of ambient temperatures for food safety and suitability so that the food remains safe for consumption and suitable. And then also the other area which is covered by good manufacturing practices is air quality and ventilation. In the facility, there has to be natural or mechanical ventilation. This will help to minimize airborne particles and moisture in the food manufacturing areas. And then this also helps to control uh, helps in control of ambient temperatures within the establishment. And air quality and ventilation also controls bad smells or odors in the establishment, and also helps to control the humidity in the establishment. Then uh, prevent airflow from contaminated to clean areas. This is very important to avoid contamination. We should always ensure that the airflow is always from clean areas, to contaminated areas. Because if it is from the contaminated areas to clean areas, it is going to contaminate the clean areas. And hence, if it is where the food is being processed from, then the food will have higher chances of getting contaminated. Then there has to be maintenance and cleaning. Uh, Lighting, there in the establishment, there should be always a good lighting system, which is always adequate for hygienic operation, so that all the areas within the manufacturing area uh, is not in darkness, and this will help in a hygienic operation because it makes cleaning the equipment and the area very easier, and it will be done properly. But if the lighting systems are not good ones, then it will be very hard to maintain hygienic operations. And then also the lighting should be the one which is not misleading of colors, because we have other lighting system whereby you find that it is made up of different colors, which will make even sorting raw materials very hard, cleaning very hard, distinguishing between the products and the non-food products it becomes also very hard. So always we should make sure that the lighting should be the one which is not misleading of colors, should be bright. Then protect food from contamination or from breakage. The lighting should be the one which protects food from contamination or from breakage. Storage. The storage facilities should be adequate for food, ingredients, and non-food chemicals, so that there will be no mixed up of the foods, ingredients, and non-food chemicals to avoid cross contamination. Then the storage facilities should be designed and constructed for maintenance and cleaning, and then it has to prevent pest harborage, prevent contamination of food, and then it should be in position of also minimizing deterioration. Especially this one can be achieved by uh, controlling temperature and moisture in the store. And then the next area which is covered by good manufacturing practices is the control of operations. Under this, we have to control food hazards, and we can do that by identifying any steps in the operation which are critical to the safety of foods. Then we have to always implement effective control procedures at those steps which we have identified, which are critical to food safety. Then we have to also ensure that there is monitoring control procedures to ensure the continuing effectiveness of the control procedures that we have established. Then we have to review control procedures periodically and whenever the operations change. Then we have to use hazard analysis and critical control point uh, as a food safety system to ensure that the food that are being produced, or the food products are of good quality and suitable for consumption. Then still under the control of operation, we have to always do temperature and time control, and this is very important because is the most common cause of foodborne illnesses or diseases, and we can do this time and temperature control during cooking, cooling, processing, and storage. And so during these processes, we have to always ensure that we have to specify the time and temperature limits during all these processes. And we can do that depending on the nature of the product that we want to produce. And then also depending on the intended shelf life of the product, the methods of packaging and processing. And also we can specify this time and temperature limits depending on the intended use of the product. Is it for further processing and so on? Then also it has to be done depending on the calibration and testing of temperature recording devices. Then in the control of operation, there are also specific processes designed for food hygiene, and these include chilling, thermal processing, irradiation, drying, chemical processing, vacuum modified atmosphere packaging, and all these techniques or methods are being discussed under food processing and preservation. Then there has to be also microbiological cross contamination during the process of operation, and the microbial cross contamination can be as a result of one food contaminating another food. That's say it can be from food to food. That's why we are always advised to make sure that we don't mix uh, raw foods with the ready to eat foods. Then the cross contamination, the microbial cross contamination can also occur as a result of direct contact. For instance, a person who is having the pathogen uh, touches the food with the contaminated hands, then the food will also be contaminated. And also the direct contact can be maybe you are using utensils which are containing the pathogen. You are using equipment which are unclean. Then also cross contamination can occur uh, when the food contact surfaces are containing the pathogen, and then it can occur from also food handlers, or and then it can be from air. So we have to always make sure that we avoid this microbial cross contamination during the time of food processing or in the process of the uh, operations, food operations. So we have to ensure that all these are being controlled in order to make sure that the food is safe. Then microbial cross contamination control. How can we control this? We can control the microbial cross contamination by separating raw and processed food from ready to eat foods, and we can do this physically or by time. And there has to always be intermediate cleaning, and where appropriate we have to disinfect. Then we have to restrict or control access to processing areas so that people who are sick are not allowed to enter into the processing area, or uh, idle individuals will not be allowed to enter into the processing area to avoid carriage of pathogen which can result into cross contamination. Then we can have changing facilities, protective clothing, footwear, and hand wash to avoid cross contamination. Then we have to clean surfaces, equipments, and utensils regularly. We have to always disinfect after handling or processing raw foods. Then food contact surfaces should also be always clean, free of pathogens or contaminants. Still under the control of operations as one of the requirements for good manufacturing practices. Uh, we should not accept raw materials or ingredients which are known to contain parasites or undesirable microorganisms, pesticides, or toxic substances which will not be reduced to acceptable level. If the level of the microorganisms, pesticides, toxic substances, or the parasites are at unacceptable level in the raw materials or ingredients, then we don't need to accept it. We need to reject it. Then, where appropriate, specification for raw materials should be uh, applied. We have to specify the raw materials so that we shall know. Then it will help us to prevent cross contamination. Then also, where appropriate, we have to inspect and sort incoming supplies prior to use. Before we use the raw materials, we have to first of all inspect it for safety and quality, and then so that the ones which are of bad quality or the ones which are spoiled, we sort them differently, and then the good ones we sort them differently, and then we use them for processing. Then lab results to establish fitness for use. If the raw materials requires lab testing, we need to do the laboratory testing, and then we use the results to establish fitness for use. Or else if the raw materials are bad ones, then we don't use them for processing the foods. Then also, packaging is also one of the requirements covered under good manufacturing practices. And packaging materials and designs should be in a way, or should be the one which can minimize contamination, prevent damage, and should be the one which can accommodate labeling. Always labeling is very, very important because it guides the consumers. It makes the consumers to come up with a firm decision whether to buy or consume the food or not. Then the materials which are used for packaging should be the one which are non-toxic under storage and use conditions, because if they are toxic ones, there is a possibility of them contaminating the food with the toxic substances which can cause harm to the consumers. Then the packaging materials will also be durable, cleanable, and able to be disinfected. The next area covered by good manufacturing practices that we are going to look at is water, ice, and steam. In the establishment, we should always use potable water, and this potable water should be the one which meets the World Health Organization guideline. A potable water is water which is clean and safe for drinking, and this means that the water which we are using, we should know the source, so that if we get it from unsafe sources, we have to treat it by chlorination, or by boiling, or by filtration before we use it. Then contact with the food as an ingredient. For ice or steam in direct contact with the food contact surfaces. So the water which we are going to use uh, should be clean, or the potable water, because the water will be in direct contact with the food during the process of processing, and sometimes we use this water as ingredients. Therefore, we have to always ensure that the water which we are going to use for these purposes are always potable water to avoid contamination, or for safety reasons. Then the water which we are going to use for cleaning the contact surfaces will also be the potable water. All these are to prevent cross contamination, and then exceptions where not to be a risk to safety and suitability of food. We can use water which is not potable only where we think there is no risk to safety and suitability of food. Steam, there has to be steam or fire protection in food handling without hazards. Then we have to always use clean sea water. Then water circulated for reuse should also be potable water. Documentation and records. We have to always maintain records of controls which are exercised or practiced. This enables traceability besides other uses. Then processing, production, and distribution should always be documented and recorded for traceability. Then retention period to exceed the shelf life. We have to provide evidence, and the evidence can be provided uh, when there is a record or when there is a documentation done. Then credibility and effectiveness of the food safety control system can also be ensured through documentation and record keeping. The next area covered by good manufacturing practices is the product recalls and public warning. Product recall is mainly done after uh, there is a food safety hazard which is realized after a product is being uh, manufactured or produced, and this can be identified or realized before the product reaching the consumer or after the products reaching the consumer. So there has to always be rapid recall for any food safety hazard within the establishment so that this unsafe food uh, does not reach to the consumer, because if it reaches the consumer it can cause foodborne diseases or adverse health effect to them, and then it is going to cost the company, especially when the customer or the consumers uh, take legal proceedings. Then we have to consider the need for public warning in case of any food safety hazard occurring. Then we have to also consider the disposition of the recalled product. Uh, we have to also enable unique lot identification and traceability. This one here will help to easily do recalling, because if there's lot identification we can easily trace and then recall back the products, but without lot identification it is going to be hard once the products are being released to the consumer. So recall can be enabled by unique lot identification and traceability. Then there has to be product recall mock trial for effectiveness of the system. So once you have designed a system for recall, you have to try it with the consumers, so that you ensure that it is effective. Then also, good manufacturing practices requirement covers maintenance and sanitation. We have to maintain facility and equipment for function, cleaning, sanitization and prevent contamination. Then cleaning chemicals, we have to use, when we are using cleaning chemicals, we have to follow the instructions which are in the labels to avoid overuse or contamination. Then we have to always consider segregating these cleaning chemicals from other uh, food products. Then we have to also be in position of identifying them. Then we need to have written cleaning programs, written cleaning programs which will help us, which will help guide us in the process of doing our cleaning. Pest control programs, uh, we have to always prevent pests uh, from the establishment or in the food production area, and we can do that by preventing the access of the pests, for instance the rodents, birds, animals and insects. Then we have to always prevent their access by ensuring that there are no places within the facility that can harbor the pests. And we can also prevent these rodent, rodents, birds, animals, and insects by ensuring that we prevent their access to food, water, breeding sites, and then refuse. We should not make the this to get into contact with our foods. Then we can ensure that there's a monitoring and eradication of the pests. So pest control programs are basically three. We can do, we can prevent the access of the pests to our food, or we can monitor the pests, and then or we can eradicate or eliminate the pests at all so that they don't exist in the food manufacturing area. Then pest control programs involves we can use the following methods to ensure that we control pests. For insects, we can use insect electrocutters, which are mostly placed away from natural light and fitted with a catch trap, so that in case the insect try to pass, it will be trapped using the insect electrocutters. Then we can use insecticides and rodenticides. And if we have used this to kill the pests, uh, we should make sure that we use it under precaution so that there will be prevention of contamination of food with the illegal residues of the insecticides and rodenticides. Then we should ensure that the factory and the surrounding are kept clean to keep away the vermin of the pests. Then we can use traps for rodents. Then external doors shall be rodent proof and shall be fitted with a self closer so that it prevents the entrance of the rodents or the pests. Then we have to use fly screens which are made up of stainless steel or nylon. Then another important area which is covered by good manufacturing practices is waste management or disposal. Waste management, under this we have to ensure that there is a removal and storage of waste, which is being done uh, properly. Then we have to prevent accumulation in food handling and storage areas to avoid contamination. Then we have to always make sure that we have to clean waste storage areas. We have to keep it tidy so that cross contamination is prevented. Then we have to do monitoring for effectiveness of the waste management or disposal system. And we can do that by doing what we call pre-operational inspections, microbiological sampling and testing. Then we have to take note of the following as we are doing our waste management and disposal. Litter, waste and refuse shall be stored in suitable containers away in a separate place. And this one helps to prevent accidental contamination. And then we have to evacuate these containers which are having the litters, waste or refuse promptly to avoid accumulation of this waste. Then skips or containers for waste shall be covered and emptied frequently. Then the presence of efficient effluent and waste treatment and disposal system. Then incineration should be done at an adequate distance away from the factory. This will help to avoid fire outbreaks. Fire outbreaks. Packaging materials, whether damaged or not, shall not be used as a waste receptacle, because this one here can mislead the workers. You may find that they may end up using a packaging material that has been used as a waste receptacle for packing for packaging the food. So that's why we have to always make sure that packaging materials, whether they are damaged or not, shall not be used as a waste receptacle. And then personal hygiene is also covered under good manufacturing practices. And here we are mainly emphasizing about personal cleanliness, health status, and then hand washing facilities, behaviors, and then the visitors which may uh, come to which might come to the factory or the food processing area. So under this, the health status, we have to prevent people with diseases or illnesses or injuries from contaminating the food, and we can do that by denying their entrance into the food processing area. Then the workers will always have valid medical certificates, which is a fitness to handle food, and we can do that by doing a periodic medical checkup so that those who are not fit to handle food shall not be allowed to handle foods. Foods will only be handled by authorized person or personnel, and these authorized personnel are the ones which are having valid medical certificates which are given under after doing medical checkup. And if there is in case of any illness or injury that is uh, realized, there has to be it has to be reported to the management so that they can take the appropriate uh, steps. Then personal cleanliness, there has to be daily hygiene checkup before production, We can do hygiene checkup like checking whether the workers are having short clean nails which are free of varnish, beard, flew, hair, and so on. Then there has to be protective clothing, head covering, and foot wears. And then also there has to be hand washing facilities, and this must be available with both soap and sanitizer at entry points, toilets, and adjacent to workstation. Elbow, knee, leg, or electronically operated. So the hand washing facilities will be the one which can be operated using the elbow, knee, leg, or should be the one which is electronically operated to avoid contaminating our hands after washing. Also, wash hands after handling raw foods, contaminating materials. Then also under personal hygiene, we have what we call personal behaviors. And these personal behaviors include things like smoking, spitting, eating, sneezing, coughing. So we have to always ensure that we prevent smoking, spitting, eating, sneezing, or coughing over unprotected foods to avoid contaminating the food in case the person is having the pathogens. Then we have to prevent other personal effects such as jewelry, watches, mobile phone, etc. in the food handling areas to avoid physical contamination which can cause uh, injuries to the consumers in case they get into the food. Then visitors who are coming into the food processing area should be the ones should meet some expectations for personal hygiene before they are allowed to enter into the food processing areas. Then the next area which is being covered by the good manufacturing practices is transportation. And we know in transportation we use conveyors and containers. These conveyors and containers should be designed and constructed to prevent contamination. Then they have to be designed in a way that they can be easily cleaned and sanitized to prevent contamination. Then also the conveyance and containers should be in position of effectively uh, separation. There has to be effective separation of food during transportation. The process of transportation, we have to separate foods from other items like the raw materials, ingredients, or human beings, and so on. So, in the conveyance of the containers, during transportation, we have to ensure that there is an effective separation of the food products. Then we have to monitor temperature and other conditions to protect the food from spoilage. And then we have to allow for measurement and monitoring during transportation. Then use and maintenance. There has to be effective cleaning and sanitization between loads. Then we have to consider need for detected transport and containers, transport and containers. Then the other area covered by good manufacturing practices is the product information and consumer awareness. And this product information and consumer awareness can be done through lot identification, product information, labeling, and consumer education. So, we have to ensure that there is always lot identification, and this also helps the producers in a traceability. So there has to be producer and the lot has to be clearly indicated for easier traceability. Then there has to be also product information. With this information to guide the consumers on proper handling, display, storage, and preparation, and then the use of the product. And then there has to also be labeling. Labeling says that they package the foods, proper handling, storage, and use. Consumer education, particularly the relationship of time, temperature control, and foodborne illnesses. Then the other area which is covered by good manufacturing practices is training. Training. Uh, Training is very important because it helps the workers who are in the food processing company or food enterprise to know their work with regards to maintaining good hygiene and sanitation, preventing contamination, and so on. So training has to be done regularly, especially for those workers have not who have no knowledge about how to maintain uh, food safe, prevent contamination, and so on. And also, there has to be uh, refresher training in order to remind the workers about their obligations or their responsibility as far as food safety and sanitation is concerned in the process of food processing. So under this training, we are going to look at awareness and responsibilities. And under this, all personnel handling food should be aware or should be trained so that they know their responsibilities. Then special training for cleaning chemicals and other hazardous materials has to be done. So they have to be trained on how to handle the food, and also they have to be trained on how to do cleaning using chemicals or other hazardous materials. Then there has to be training programs, and these training programs should be designed depending on the food, the process, and then the storage conditions. Then also we need to have training schedules and records of training for traceability and future use. Then instructions and supervisions. There has to be periodic assessment of training effectiveness, food hygiene knowledge of managers and supervisors, and this one can be done through clear instructions and supervision. There has to be refresher training, uh, which includes routine review and updating of the knowledge that they have. So with this, we have come to the end of this lecture, and we catch up in our next lecture. Thanks.